You have some nerve acting surprised after what you pulled with that group chat. Your sister only wanted to protect our family from your constant interference, and you turned it against her. All those payments you made for the house were never gifts. You were buying control over our lives. The family reunion is supposed to be a time for unity, not for you to play the victim. I'm done covering for you. Everyone knows the truth now, and they agree with me. Hi, my name is Olivia Parker. I am 32 years old. That phone call hit me while I was still in my scrubs at the veterinary clinic, the antiseptic smell clinging to everything as I stepped into the cramped back office to answer. Michael's voice came through cold and rehearsed, every word chosen to land exactly where it would hurt most. I didn't even get a full sentence out before he hung up. My fingers stayed locked around the phone long after the screen went dark. The group chat notification from earlier that morning still open on the screen, like it was mocking me. The message Chloe had accidentally forwarded to the whole family thread was right there in black and white. She and Michael had spent weeks planning how they would finally set boundaries with me at the Memorial Day reunion at the countryside house in Kentucky. They listed every payment I had quietly made toward the renovations, every time I had stepped in to cover a shortfall, and twisted it into proof that I was trying to own them. The plan was to do it in front of everyone, to make sure the shame stuck. The mistake of the forward had exposed the whole thing before they could stage their perfect moment. I walked back to the exam room on autopilot, my coworker Jessica giving me a worried glance from the front desk. She didn't ask. She just handed me the next chart and let me work. By the time my shift ended, I had replayed the call in my head so many times, the words had started to lose their shape. Michael had sounded almost proud of himself, like he was finally saying what everyone had been thinking for years. Have you ever had one conversation that made you realize the people you trusted most had been rewriting your entire history behind your back? If that kind of betrayal has ever blindsided you, too, comment strength below, so I know I'm not the only one who felt the ground drop out. I was still trying to steady myself when Michael showed up at the clinic. He walked straight past the front desk like he had every right to be there, the same way he had walked into every room of our marriage for the last 10 years. Jessica stood up halfway, eyes flicking between us, but I shook my head once and led him out to the small staff parking lot behind the building. The afternoon light was too bright for what was happening. "You can't just show up at my job," I said, keeping my voice low so it wouldn't carry inside. He gave a short laugh that didn't reach his eyes. "Your job. The one I helped you get the interview for. Don't act like this place is some sacred ground I'm violating." The jab was meant to remind me of every favor he thought he had done me. I felt my shoulders tighten, but kept my hands still at my sides. "What do you want, Michael?" "I want you to stay away from the reunion. Chloe and I already decided. The family needs space to figure out how to handle what you've been doing. Showing up would only make it worse for everyone." What I had been doing. The phrase sat between us like something rotten. I had transferred money for the new roof when the old one started leaking during the first heavy rains. I had covered the cost of the new well pump when the old one failed in the middle of a drought. I had done it without keeping a running tally in front of them, because that was what you did when you loved people. Now those same transfers were being turned into evidence of control. I looked at the man I had shared a bed with for a decade and felt something small and important inside me shift. "You really believe I was trying to control you through a roof and a well pump?" He didn't flinch. "The messages prove it. Chloe has every screenshot. The group chat forward was an accident, but maybe it saved us from having to do this the hard way later." I could have argued. I could have pulled up the actual loan agreements we had all signed, the ones that clearly stated repayment terms and timelines. Instead, I stayed quiet, long enough for the silence to become uncomfortable. Michael shifted his weight, the first crack in his rehearsed performance. "You're not coming," he said again, softer this time, like he was offering me a kindness. "Just let us have this without turning it into another one of your projects." He turned and walked back to his truck without waiting for an answer. I stayed in the parking lot until the taillights disappeared onto the main road. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Another notification from the family group chat. Someone had replied to Chloe's original message with a string of heart emojis and the words, Finally, someone said it out loud. The thread was already filling up with agreement. I drove home on autopilot, the familiar turns, feeling suddenly foreign. The small house we rented on the edge of town looked exactly the same as it had that morning, but everything inside it had changed. I sat at the kitchen table with the lights off and opened the group chat again. The messages were still there, time-stamped, undeniable. My sister and my husband had spent weeks building a case against me, using the very help I had given them without strings. That was when I remembered the old book. It was nothing special, just a battered hardcover journal my grandmother had kept for years, the kind with a cracked spine and pages that smelled like dust and cedar. It had been sitting on the top shelf of the linen closet in the Kentucky house since before Michael and I got married. I had only opened it once, years ago, looking for a recipe. I hadn't thought about it since, but now with the group chat still glowing on my screen, the memory of a loose page tucked between the back cover and the last entry came back sharp and clear. I hadn't read it at the time. I had just slipped it back where it belonged and closed the book. Something about the way the handwriting looked different from my grandmother's had made me leave it alone. I stood up from the table before I could talk myself out of it. The drive to the countryside house would take a little over an hour. Michael had told me to stay away, but the house wasn't his alone. My name was still on the title from the quiet transfer we had done years ago, when the bank had been difficult about the loan. He had asked me to put it in my name temporarily, just to make the paperwork easier. I had agreed because I trusted him. The road stretched out dark and empty in front of me. Every mile felt like it was counting down to something I wasn't ready to name yet. The group chat kept pinging on the seat beside me, more family members chiming in with their support for Chloe and Michael. I didn't open any of them. I just drove. When I pulled up to the house, the porch light was off. The windows were dark. I used the key I still carried and let myself in through the side door. The air inside smelled like the cedar chest in the hallway and the faint trace of the lemon cleaner Chloe liked to use. I didn't turn on any lights. I went straight to the linen closet, reached up to the top shelf and pulled down the old journal. My hands were steady as I opened it. The loose page was still there, folded once, the edges soft from years of being pressed between other pages. I unfolded it under the dim glow of my phone flashlight. The handwriting was Michael's. It was dated 8 years ago, right after we had finished the first round of renovations. The note was short, addressed to no one in particular, but the words were clear enough. If anything ever happens, remember, the transfer was only temporary. The house stays in her name until the loan is paid in full. She doesn't know I kept a copy of the original agreement. Chloe says we can fix it later when things are more stable. I read it twice. Then a third time. The date matched the month we had signed the paperwork at the kitchen table, laughing about how we were finally putting down real roots. Chloe had been there that weekend helping paint the new trim. She had joked about how I was too organized for my own good when I made everyone sign the repayment schedule. I folded the page carefully and slipped it into my pocket. The journal went back on the shelf exactly where I had found it. I stood in the dark hallway for a long moment, listening to the quiet of the house that had once felt like the beginning of everything good. My phone lit up again with another group chat message. This one was from Michael. It was short. "Stay away from the house. We're changing the locks tomorrow." I didn't reply. I walked back out to my car, the folded page heavy in my pocket like a second heartbeat. The drive back to town felt shorter than the drive out. Every mile gave me more clarity instead of less. By the time I pulled into my own driveway, the first real plan I had allowed myself to form in years was already taking shape. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet the same way I had always done things. But this time, the quiet had teeth. I sat in the dark car for a few minutes before going inside. The group chat was still active on my phone, the messages piling up with more hearts and more agreement. They had no idea the page in my pocket existed. They had no idea I had kept every single transfer receipt, every signed agreement, every text where they had thanked me for stepping in just this once. They thought the accidentally forwarded message was their victory. They didn't know it was only the first move in a game I had been playing longer than any of them realized. I got out of the car and walked into the house. The lights stayed off. I didn't need them. I already knew exactly what I was going to do next. The house was quiet when I finally turned on the lights. I sat at the kitchen table with the folded page from the journal in front of me and my phone face down. The group chat was still buzzing somewhere in the background, but I had muted it hours ago. I needed silence to think without their voices filling the space. I picked up a phone and scrolled to a name I hadn't used in months. Derek Harlan. We had gone through the same undergrad program years ago, and he had become a real estate attorney down in Lexington. He was one of the few people who had never needed me to explain the numbers twice. The call connected after 2 rings. "Olivia, it's late. Everything all right?" I didn't bother with small talk. "I need you to look at something. It's about the house in Kentucky, the one we put in my name when the bank was being difficult with the renovation loan." There was a short pause on his end. "Send me whatever you have, but tell me what's happening first." I walked him through the group chat, the phone call from Michael, the note I had found in the old journal, and the payments I had made without keeping a scoreboard in front of anyone. Derek listened the way he always had in college, quiet, until he had the full picture. When I finished, he let out a low breath. "If that note is real, and the original transfer documents match what you're describing, you may have more leverage than they think. The temporary clause they buried could actually protect you now. But I need to see the paperwork before I can tell you how strong it is." "I'll scan everything tonight," I said. "Olivia," he added before we hung up. "People get mean when they think they've already won, especially when family and money are tangled together. Watch your back." After the call, I went to the spare room and pulled the bottom drawer of the old filing cabinet all the way out. Every bank confirmation, every signed repayment schedule, every text where Michael or Chloe had thanked me for stepping in, just this once. I had kept them the same way I kept patient charts at the clinic, dated, labeled, impossible to argue with. The sarcasm tasted bitter in my mouth as I worked. How thoughtful of them to plan my public shaming over a group chat like it was a casserole schedule. How convenient that every gift I had given was suddenly evidence of control. Around midnight, my phone lit up with a text from Michael. "Don't make me do this the hard way. Stay away from the reunion. We're changing the locks in the morning." I stared at the screen. They were moving faster than I had expected. The note had clearly shaken something loose in him. I typed back one line. "The locks won't change what's already on paper." Then I turned the phone off and kept sorting files. The next morning at the clinic, Jessica caught me between appointments. She pulled me into the supply closet for 30 seconds, voice low. "You look like hell. And I saw the way you froze when that text came in yesterday. If you need somewhere to stay or someone to drive you anywhere, say the word." "I'm fine," I said, but the words felt thinner than they had the day before. She didn't argue, just squeezed my arm once and went back to the front desk. It was the first time in days someone had treated me like I wasn't the one who had broken something. By the end of my shift, I had a plan. Not loud, not the kind that would trend in the family group chat, just quiet and documented, the same way I had always done things when numbers mattered. I drove straight to the Kentucky house instead of going home. The porch light was off again. I used my key. The new lock still hadn't been installed. Michael had either been bluffing or hadn't found the time. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and the cedar chest in the hallway. I went straight to the study, opened the bottom drawer of the old desk, and pulled out the folder labeled Bank Transfer 2016. Michael had always assumed I kept only the copies he gave me. Inside was the original agreement, the note from the journal, and a second page in Michael's handwriting I had never seen before. It was dated 3 months after the first note. A short list of every payment I had made, with one line at the bottom in his own hand. "This keeps her tied to the house. Chloe says it's the only way to make sure she doesn't leave when things get hard." I took clear photos of every page with my phone, then put the folder back exactly where I had found it. When I stepped back onto the porch, Michael was standing at the bottom of the steps, arms crossed, jaw tight. "I told you not to come here," he said. The calm from the parking lot the day before was gone. "I needed something from the desk," I answered. "Something you left behind years ago." He took one step closer. "Whatever game you think you're playing ends tonight. Chloe already told the family everything. They all agree you need to step back and let us handle the house without you hovering." I opened the photos on my phone and held the screen toward him, including this one. His face changed when he saw the second page. The color left his cheeks in a way the porch light made impossible to miss. "Where the hell did you get that?" "Same place you left the first note. You really should have burned both of them if you wanted a clean rewrite." He didn't speak for a long moment. The only sound was the cicadas in the trees behind the house. "You can't use that," he said at last, but the certainty had drained out of his voice. "I don't have to use it," I said. "I just have to show the right people at the right time." "The reunion feels like the right time." I walked past him to my car without waiting for an answer. In the rearview mirror, he was still standing on the gravel, one hand half raised like he wanted to call me back, but didn't know what to say. My phone buzzed before I reached the main road. A text from Chloe. "Stay away. You don't belong there anymore." I didn't answer her. Instead, I opened the family group chat I had muted and typed one sentence. "See you all at the reunion. I have something important to share about the house." I hit send, turned the ringer off, and kept driving. The road was dark, but the weight in my pocket from the scanned documents felt lighter than it had in years. They had spent weeks planning how to shame me in front of everyone. They had no idea. I had just given them a deadline. The morning of the reunion, I woke before sunrise. 3 hours of sleep at most, but my head felt sharper than it had in years. I packed the manila envelope with the scanned documents, the photos of both notes, and the screenshots from the group chat. No speeches, just proof. Derek had texted at dawn. "Paperwork is solid. The temporary transfer clause protects you. Use it clean. I'm on standby if they push legal." Jessica had sent only a heart when I told her I was going anyway. That was all I needed. I drove to the Kentucky house with the windows down. Early summer air cut through the car and kept me steady. When I pulled up, the gravel drive was already lined with cars. The same family members who had filled the group chat with hearts and agreement. I parked at the end and walked in through the side door the way I always had. The kitchen was crowded. Michael stood by the counter holding coffee he had not touched. Chloe was next to him, mid-laugh at something our aunt had said. The sound died the second I stepped inside. Michael's face went hard. "I told you not to come." I remember I said setting the envelope on the island where everyone could reach it. But since the plan was always to do this in front of the family, I thought I would save you the trouble of staging it. Chloe's smile vanished. "Olivia, this is not the time." "It is exactly the time," I answered, voice level. "You spent weeks deciding how to shame me here. I am simply changing who speaks first." I opened the envelope and laid the pages out one by one. The group chat screenshots where Chloe had written that I needed to be put in my place before I took over everything. The first note from the journal in Michael's hand. The second page also in his handwriting, listing every payment I had made with the line at the bottom, "This keeps her tied to the house. Chloe says it's the only way to make sure she doesn't leave." The only sound was the refrigerator kicking on. Michael spoke first, voice low and tight. "Those are old. You are taking them out of context on purpose." "Read them out loud," I said. "Read the part where you and my sister decided the only way to keep me from leaving was to keep me financially chained to a house that was supposed to belong to both of us." Chloe's cheeks flushed dark. "You are twisting everything we said. We were protecting the family from your constant interference." I pulled out my phone and played the recording I had taken on the porch 2 nights earlier. Michael telling me the locks would be changed and I did not belong. Then I played the voicemail Chloe had left the night before. Her voice sharp, as she called me manipulative and told me to stay away for everyone's sake. The same words they had typed in the group chat, now in their own voices, filling the kitchen, where the family they had tried to turn against me stood listening. My cousin Rachel spoke from the back of the room, quiet but clear. "That is not what you wrote in the chat, Chloe. You said she was trying to take the house from you." Murmurs started. Not the supportive kind from the group chat. These were uncertain questioning. Michael stepped closer, jaw clenched. "You are destroying what is left of this family over old paperwork." I looked at him. The man I had once trusted enough to put a house in my name so the bank would approve the loan. No, I am done letting you destroy me with it. There is a difference. My voice cracked then. Not from weakness, but from the weight of every quiet payment I had made without ever keeping score in front of them. I helped because I believed we were building something together. You turned every dollar into proof that I was controlling you. I am finished being the one who pays for your comfort while you rewrite the story. Chloe tried one last time, voice shaking with the same cold sarcasm she had used in the group chat. You always have to make yourself the victim. I met her eyes without flinching. No, I am simply done being the one you sacrifice so you can keep pretending we are still a family. The room stayed quiet. Some people looked at the floor. Others stared at the pages on the island. The public shaming they had planned had turned back on them in the exact place they had chosen to stage it. The image of perfect family unity they had tried so hard to protect cracked open in front of everyone. I gathered the papers back into the envelope. The house stays in my name until the loans are repaid, exactly as the original agreement stated. I am not taking it from you. I am simply refusing to pretend the debt does not exist anymore. You can honor the schedule we all signed years ago, or Derek Harlan can handle the legal side. That choice is yours. Michael did not answer. Chloe kept her eyes on the floor. I turned to the room one last time. I am not staying for the rest of the day. But I wanted every single one of you to hear the truth, in the same room where the lie was supposed to be told. No one stopped me when I walked out. In the car, my hands finally shook. Not from fear, from the release of something I had carried for 10 years without ever saying it out loud. The tears came sudden and hot, the kind that arrive when you finally stop swallowing them. I let them fall for a full minute, then wiped my face and started the engine. Deep inner peace settled in as I drove away. Not victory in the loud sense, not revenge, just the steady knowledge that I had chosen myself when it counted. The boundaries I had never drawn before were now written in ink paper, and the truth they had tried to bury. That night I texted Derek. They know. It is finished. He replied within minutes. You did it clean. Proud of you. Call if anything shifts. Jessica called an hour later. You good? I will be, I said. And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. The lesson settled quietly in the days that followed. Boundaries are not walls built to shut people out. They are lines drawn so you can remain whole while still loving whoever is left on the other side. Choosing yourself is not selfish when the alternative is disappearing one quiet payment, one rewritten story, one public shaming at a time. It is the bravest thing you can do when the people who should have stood beside you are the ones holding the knife. Thank you for listening to my story all the way through. If you have ever had to draw a line with the people you love most, or if you are still finding the strength to do it, comment "strength" below. I read every single one.